It was July 3rd, 1957 in Akron, Ohio, at around 11:10 p.m. when a young man who recently turned 21 years old, Frank Freshwaters, was driving along the southbound lane of Arlington Drive. His car was not in great condition and did not have a functioning horn or emergency brake. He also did not have car insurance. As he neared 1000 Linton Drive, he suddenly saw a man crossing the road near his home right in front of the car. Traveling at about 40 miles per hour, he tried to stop, but was unable to do so in time and collided with 24-year-old Eugene Flynt. Flynt was seriously injured and died at 12:01 a.m., less than an hour after the collision. Freshwaters was arrested and booked on second-degree manslaughter charges because, according to prosecutor Robert Blakemore, he was speeding and driving an unsafe vehicle when the accident occurred. He was given a $1,000 bond by Judge William Victor and was able to make bail. Freshwaters eventually agreed to plead guilty and appeared in court nearly a year after the accident with tears streaming down his face. He told the court he had not driven a car since the accident and has suffered from guilt every day since. "It's not something like a nightmare which is gone in a day. It stays with you," Freshwater said to Judge Frank H. Harvey. To make matters worse, the victim, Eugene Flynt, who worked at the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, was a former United States Army paratrooper with a wife named Garnet and 3 children, aged 2, 4, and 6. Freshwaters himself had recently married to Patricia Freshwaters, and they had 1 child named Jeff. He assured the judge that any man who kills another accidentally is already punished for life due to the nonstop agonizing guilt. Freshwaters seemed genuinely remorseful, and the judge granted him leniency by suspending the 1 to 20-year prison sentence if he could successfully complete a 5-year probation sentence, during which time his driving privileges would be suspended. Frank Freshwaters had the opportunity to continue his life with his wife and son until he violated the terms of his probation by driving a car, failing to report to the probation department, and failing to make weekly payments that would have gone to Flynt's widow and children. He was sent to prison in February of 1959 to serve out his sentence of up to 20 years. In July of that year, Patricia was granted a divorce. Frank Freshwaters had now lost everything and was serving his time at the Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio. He was a model prisoner, and after gaining the trust of the prison guards, he was recommended for a transfer to Sandusky Honor Farm in Perkins Township, where he would serve the rest of his sentence. He was assigned to work in the mess hall and met another prisoner named Frank Cara of Cleveland. Cara was serving a sentence for burglary. After some discussions, they decided to make a run for it. When no prison guards were around, they simply walked away, as the farm was a minimum security facility and had no major fences with barbed wire, as most prisons are known for. They took off heading south on US 250. Cara was eventually recaptured and served his sentence before living out his life without further incident. But Frank Freshwaters completely vanished. It was not known if he was alive or dead until 1975, when Freshwaters, who was living under the new name William Harold Cox with a new social security number, was being investigated on a peace warrant in Charleston, West Virginia, after a complaint from an ex-girlfriend who he had a common law relationship with. This woman, who did not know him as Frank Freshwaters, complained that he had been threatening her. In Charleston, Freshwaters had become a respected figure in the community who played country music on his guitar and had been living there peacefully for many years. When authorities, who still didn't know who he was, tried to serve the peace warrant, he tried to hide in a cubicle under the sink of his home. This made police suspicious, and after they apprehended him, they did a deep dive into his background, and after contacting the state of Ohio, they were able to confirm who he really was. Freshwaters admitted that he first moved to Florida after escaping prison, where he got his new name and social before moving to West Virginia. He was willing to return to Ohio to face the music. But at the hearing, the arresting officers and the woman failed to show up, leading West Virginia Governor Arch A. Moore Jr. to refuse extradition, saying that he had been a model citizen for 16 years and was a threat to nobody. Freshwaters was released and decided that he would take off while he still could, moving back to Florida, where he moved in with his son. Nearly 40 more years would pass before authorities tracked him down again. He had been living in Florida, caretaking a marshland property, mostly keeping to himself and occasionally fishing. He would have lived out his life there if the Marshal Service in Ohio did not decide to set up a cold case unit. That unit reopened the Freshwaters case, and after an investigation, quickly determined that he was living in the Melbourne area in Florida. They approached him on May 4th, 2015, about 56 years since his escape. He was shown a photograph of a young Frank Freshwaters and was asked if he recognized the young man. He responded, yes, but he hadn't seen that boy in a long time. Freshwaters confessed and was immediately arrested, officially breaking the record as the longest escaped fugitive who was finally captured in the history of the U.S. Marshals. He made very few mistakes during his freedom and probably would have never been captured if his ex-common law wife hadn't complained to police in 1975. But he was evidently making threats towards her, a huge mistake that nearly led him going back to prison right then and there. But he was fortunate that the governor refused to send him back, and for that, he gained 40 more years of freedom. Freshwaters was sent to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction after his 2015 capture, but letters poured in from more than 2,000 people asking for his parole. He was granted just that in February of 2016 after strong arguments from his attorney that he had more than proven to be no threat to society. Prosecutors argued that he had originally violated parole, escaped prison, changed his name, avoided accountability, and did not even pay restitution owed to the victim Eugene Flynt's family. Flynt's son, Richard Flynt, was at the hearing and said Freshwaters needed to be held accountable for what he had done. Nevertheless, Freshwaters was released on June 15, 2016 and given one more chance to complete a 5-year probation sentence. This time he succeeded, completing his supervision in 2021. Thank you all for checking out today's video on another escaped fugitive, this one who remained free for an incredible 56 years. Do you think he should have stayed locked up for the rest of his life after being recaptured? Or had he proven to be no threat to society after so many years and did not need to go back to prison when the original crime was an accident after all? Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe and click another one of the videos above for another escaped fugitive video. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you in the next one.